Welcome to Even Tacos Fall Apart, where we talk about navigating the ups and downs of life with a focus on mental health. Today, we are talking about writing and mental health, two things that are often linked, but don't always get talked about in the same breath. A lot of people think writing has to be about producing something good or publishable, but writing can be so much more than that. It can be a lifeline. It can be a way to process emotions you can't quite say out loud. It can help you make sense of a chaotic day or a hard experience, even if the only person who ever sees it is you. You don't have to be a writer to use writing for your mental health. You don't need the perfect notebook or fancy pens or a plan for what you're going to do with the words. You just need to be willing to put them down somewhere. You could type them into a note on your phone. You could scribble them on the back of a receipt. You could keep them forever or rip them up 5 minutes later. The act of getting thoughts out of your head and onto something outside of you can be powerful. There's also research backing this up. Studies show that writing about emotions can help reduce stress, boost mood, and even improve physical health in some cases. Therapists often recommend journaling for a reason. It's a low-cost, flexible tool that you can use anywhere, and you get to control how it's done. That means no rules, no grades, no judgment, just you and your thoughts. But that doesn't mean it's easy. Sometimes the hardest part is starting. You might sit down with the intention of writing and immediately think, I have nothing to say, or this feels weird. Or maybe you've got so much in your head that it feels overwhelming to even try. That's where prompts, structure, and support can make a difference. Having a starting point can help you break through that wall. In today's episode, I'm joined by Jennifer Wright, who has built an entire career around helping people tell their stories. She's a writer, editor, publisher, artist, and even a stand-up comedian. She's also the creator of the Author's Way Journal, which gives people 90 days of writing prompts and exercises to help them find their voice and make writing a regular part of their lives. Jennifer knows that writing can be a deeply personal and healing process. And she's worked with everyone from first-time journalers to leaders writing their first books. We talk about why writing is such a powerful tool for mental health, how to make it part of your routine even if you're busy, and why you don't have to be good at writing for it to help you. Jennifer also shares practical advice for breaking through creative blocks, getting past fear of judgment, and using writing to work through tough emotions. Whether you've been journaling for years or you haven't picked up a pen since high school, this conversation will give you ideas and encouragement to start or keep going. So let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Jennifer Wright on writing and mental health. Hello and welcome to another Mental Health Monday here on Even Tacos Fall Apart. I am so glad you are here. I'm so glad you're able to make it. We are going to be talking about writing and mental health today, and I am going to go ahead and open up the question queue. If you have any questions related to writing and mental health, feel free to pop those into the question queue, and we will get them. Answered while we are here. But I am joined today by Jennifer Wright, and she is a writer, editor, and publisher who helps leaders tell their stories and share their expertise through powerful content. She hosts the Author's Way podcast and recently published the Author's Way Journal, a 90-day journey to finding your voice, which we are going to talk about tonight, and leads Leadership Portraits, a platform that highlights the voices and insights of leaders from all walks of life. And on top of all of that, she is also an artist and a stand-up comedian, which is an amazing combo already. Tonight, we are going to be talking about writing, mental health, creativity, and how storytelling can help us make sense of our struggles. So again, if you have any questions about that when you're here live on Twitch or YouTube, feel free to drop those into the chat and we'll make sure to get those answered. I will also share some social links for you guys, including the link to the Author's Way Journal and a link to a free writing tool, Words That Heal, a guide to personal transformation through writing. So make sure that you connect with Jennifer. And Jennifer, thank you so much for agreeing to be here and taking the time to join us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about the conversation.
Yeah. Let me get these links posted real quick and we'll kind of get started. But while I'm doing that, can you just share a little bit about what led you to becoming an author and to consulting work?
Oh gosh. So I spent about 25 years in the corporate world. And the entire time I was in my corporate job, there was always kind of this nagging feeling that I was supposed to be doing something else.
Mm.
I had stepped out of corporate many years ago to become a professional copywriter. That was kind of a dream of mine. And about 10 years ago, I'd gone back into corporate. About 10 years ago, a friend of mine approached me and she said, "I really want to write a book. Can you help me?" And I said, "Well, I've never written a book before, but let's try it. Let's see what happens." So we did, and we published her first book. And then a couple of years later, during the pandemic, she came to me again and she said, "I've got a second book." So we worked together and wrote her second book. Well, then other people just started showing up. There were other people who wanted help doing small pieces and larger pieces and help kind of, with advice. And so I thought, that it just sounds like this is something that is needed in the world and something that I've really kind of learned over the course of the last several years. And so let's see if this is something I can do and, really kind of share this with others and help them to do the same thing.
Yeah. So very organically, very just you kind of went from one
And
thing
very
to
organic.
another and then helped a friend out
Yes.
and realized there was a need, and that's really neat. What took you from what you were doing to the copywriting piece? Where was that? How did that go?
So early in my career, I had been a teacher
Hmm.
and I had relocated to Atlanta and I was looking for a teaching job. But then I was exploring other things and someone turned me on to this gentleman named Bob Bly or Robert Bly. And he had written a couple of books about being a professional copywriter. Well, I was a writer, I kind of in secret, I did a lot of writing for myself. And I started exploring that to see, was this a viable career option? So I had done a lot of research on it. Well, I'd been working at Verizon. I went through a job layoff
Mm.
and I thought, what a perfect time to kind of maybe take the jump into doing something a little bit different. So I decided at that point, let me just, take a shot at this. So I became a professional copywriter. I did that for about 3 years. I got pulled back into corporate. The steady paycheck is a tough thing to ignore sometimes,
Yeah.
especially when you're young. So I got pulled back into corporate, but there was a nagging feeling that that there was something about writing that
Mm.
was going to be in my future.
Yeah. It is hard to ignore that paycheck for sure. And now you do a whole bunch of things. So you're
Yes.
a writer and a producer and you do
Mhm.
consulting and
Mhm.
editing and you're a comedian and you're creative. So how do you balance all of that with taking care of your own well-being?
Um, Sometimes I don't.
Fair.
Balance is hard and it's not always perfect. I think it's so when I was in my corporate roles, I was a specialist in project management, business process strategy and execution. And I think those skills that I learned doing that have really helped me in a lot of ways
Mm.
with my business, the organization, the planning, really developing a strategy and being able to figure out the different steps to be able to execute on it. That helps a lot. Um, I tend to come up with ideas a lot. And I have friends that say, "Okay, let's focus on one thing." I'm like, "I don't want to focus on one thing. I want to focus on three things." But I think my background, my corporate background has actually been very helpful
Mm.
in building the business because it has given me those skills for the organization and the strategy and being able to figure out all the different steps and how to execute on those steps. I used to say, a great idea is crap without execution.
Yeah.
If you can't execute on it, then it's kind of worthless. So I work a lot on really my plan and how I actually work to get those things done.
Yeah. You can have a lot of great ideas and they're gonna go nowhere if you don't do something with them and about them.
Exactly.
But that drive is really hard to balance. The drive is really hard to say, okay, it's okay if I take a minute for myself when you're like, no, I've got all these ideas. That can be really hard. How do you pull yourself out of that? Or can you pull yourself out of that when needed?
So the art,
Mm.
interestingly enough, does it a lot of times for me. It's my meditation. It gives me when I'm working on whether I'm drawing or painting, I kind of become immersed in it,
Mm.
and so everything else sort of falls away. And so that is one of the things that I do to really kind of step away from some of the other things. So, although people will ask me, they're like, at some point, are you going to sell your art, or and maybe one day, but right now it's just kind of a little bit of my escape.
Yeah.
And the other is the comedy is a little bit too. I have an opportunity. So I started doing comedy back in 2019. But I took a class,
Mm-hmm.
and then I took a second class. Well, now I actually help with the class.
Oh, awesome.
So I get yeah, yeah. So it gives me an opportunity I help the students in the class actually write their jokes. So it gives me an opportunity to kind of immerse myself into that. And I have no plans of being a professional comedian. Everything I do with comedy is amateur.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it gives me kind of that chance to do something a little bit different and a little
Yeah.
bit unique.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have a true crime story that fascinates you?
Oh gosh. So to be honest, true crime kind of freaks me out a little bit.
That's fair.
I'm I I being being a single woman for so long, I would always hear these stories of these things. I'm like, okay, I'm not, yeah, those. However, I did get really fascinated. I became very engrossed in the Murdaugh trials
Oh,
in South
yeah.
Carolina
Mm-hmm.
last year or a couple of years ago. So yes, I did get really into that, where I watched all the documentaries and I watched, the footage of the trials and everything. So I would say that probably is the most recent one that I became really fascinated with.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting to hear you say, like, as a single woman, because when I was single, and it was very much like you would hear these stories and it's like, okay, here are all the things that I could do differently. It's kind of how that's the way that I would look at it. But also it's like ultimately in the end, if they want to get you, they'll get you.
Well, that is true.
And
That is true.
I think if I'm thinking of the right one, was the Murdaugh trial, he killed his wife, right?
His wife and his son.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
now he wasn't the one who did like the live stream to cover it up, was he? Or was that I think that might be
I
someone else.
don't I don't think so.
Yeah.
He was an attorney and he came from a family of attorneys. I mean, they were like this very powerful family in that area, and it was quite the story,
Yeah.
for a while. And maybe because I was at the time I was living in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and And so it was kind of a regional story also. So
Yeah.
it was so it was almost local
Mm-hmm.
for us there.
Yeah. They say you're most likely to be murdered by your loved one that you're living with,
Right.
or a partner that you're living with or something. So, you know,
Right.
which is such a bummer. I saw a video of a maid of honor speech who said, look each other deep in the eyes and come to grips with the fact that this is the person most likely to kill you.
Oh my gosh.
At their wedding. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I hope they appreciated that.
That just gives me
Yeah.
more excuses for staying single.
Yep. Yep. It really does. So, getting to the topic of writing and mental health tonight, how has writing played a role in your own mental health journey?
Writing has been something, I mean, since I was a kid. It was I was am very much an introvert, have always been.
Mm.
And it was, I tell a story of I was always in the back of the room when I was a kid, and it's because my last name. When they put us in alphabetical order, I was always in the back of the room. And so it actually was, I think it sort of created some of the introversion,
Mm.
but it also created some of the creativity, I think, because I would sit in the back of the room and I would read and I would write. And there was always something for me to write about, but I never shared it with anyone.
Mm.
And I would write about everything. I would write stories and I would write, my thoughts and different things. And so it was really an escape for me, but it was also a chance for me to process. I'm a processor. And so it gives me the ability to process my thoughts
Mm-hmm.
in a way that um, is, I can step away from things and process when I'm writing um, in a much better way than I can if I have to verbalize it.
Yeah.
Uh, so it really is. And I'm also a doodler. So
Same.
I like to not only when I'm writing, I like, there's all kinds of different journals. I like blank page journals
Mm.
so that I can control the space and I can doodle and I can draw and I can do different things when I'm writing. So yeah, so it's really kind of an escape.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that kind of that creativity and the drawing and everything is a little bit of your meditation as well. So that
Yes.
tracks. Because I always, whenever
Yeah.
I'll be in a meeting or something and just doodling over in the margins, and it helps me focus. It helps me focus in on what they're saying
Mhm.
because I'm not thinking about writing anything down. I'm not thinking about trying to make sure I'm paying attention and my mind isn't wandering. I'm like, focus on just moving your
Mhm.
hand and drawing, and then you can listen at the same time. And it's quite different
Yep.
because I know if my 11-year-old is drawing, he's not listening because he's telling the story of his drawing in his head. Where if I'm doing it,
Right.
it's a way to help clear my mind a little bit. So,
Yes.
yeah, you gotta
Yes.
you gotta kind of know yourself and know what's going to be supportive for you.
Mm.
Do
Yes.
you?
I am also Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I am also a pen to paper writer.
Mm,
I I type when I'm working on something,
yeah,
but when I'm being creative, I have to put pen to paper.
interesting.
Because my brain just works differently when I'm doing that, when I'm brainstorming, when I'm working out, I'm problem solving,
Hmm.
when I'm being creative, I am pen to paper. And is I read an interesting study the other day. They did some brain scans. They took subjects and they scanned their brains while they were writing
Mm-hmm.
with pens on paper. And the brain activity was so interesting. It like lit up like all parts of the brain. So the act of actually writing on paper like makes our brains operate
Mm-hmm.
much more um makes our brains much more active than a lot of things that we do,
Yeah.
which I found that fascinating.
Yeah, I definitely could see that with typing because I could type every
Mhm.
word you're saying right now and not pay attention to what I'm doing. And it's
Yes.
just like that's just my fingers doing a job. That's just what they're
Mhm.
over there doing. But yeah, whenever I'm writing stuff down, it helps me get things out of my head. I went through a period in my life of very high anxiety because of the situation that I was in. And one of the things that I did that really helped me was to write things down. If I started ruminating on them or anything like
Mhm.
that. And I wasn't in a space where it was safe to keep those pages, but I would write them down and then throw them away in a trash can. And it was like just writing them
Yes.
down, getting them out on paper. It helped me stop having them roam around in my head so much. And
Right.
so and for some people that works great. For some people it really doesn't work very well. And also, if I had kept those pages, I think I would have gone back to them and read them later. So it was probably good that I just was
Mhm.
like, okay, write it all down, throw it away. But it helped me get it out of my head. And when I'm working on a big project at work, still, if there are things that I find myself in the middle of the night waking up and going, oh no, what about? And then I'll think about it for a little while. I'll put a notepad or some sticky notes on my bedside table with a pen so I can wake up, write down whatever it is, and go back to sleep.
Right.
Because it's like,
Exactly.
okay, you've written it down, you'll figure it out later.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
writing things down definitely helps you process a little bit differently. Do you feel like writing can be healing, even if it never gets published, or even if you're throwing it away?
Yes, I absolutely believe, and I believe that's one of the reasons we find so many life coaches and therapists recommending journaling,
Mm-hmm.
because there's just something very healing about being able to express. And for someone who's been through trauma, and let's face it, we've all been through trauma, it's easier to write about the experience for most people than it is to verbalize it.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about it, I'll think about times when I try to talk about something and there's just so much emotion, it's hard to get the words out.
Yeah.
But I can write about it and get it out and express whatever it is I need to express without having it you almost bypass the emotional response
Mm-hmm.
when you're writing it. So it just gives you that ability to be able to express what you want to say without having to deal with getting choked up or getting emotional or getting teary,
Yeah.
during the experience. And I've worked with vets, I've worked with people who've experienced abuse, uh, and um, and all of them have said that the process of writing their story was actually very healing for um, help them to get through their trauma experiences as well.
Yeah. I feel like also, at least for me, writing things down gives you the ability to get the full story out there too, because you can think about it. You
Yes.
can think about it. You can write down what you want to write down, come back later, write down a little more. Even if you get upset, even if those emotions do come up for you, you can like
Mhm.
sit and feel those emotions. You can go for a walk, you can come back to it. It's like the
Mhm.
pressure is lifted to get every word that you want to say out into the open right then because you're writing it down, because you're taking the time to write it down instead of being like, no, I'm under pressure to get it all out right now. And you can really focus on, does this paint the whole picture? uh, does this tell the whole story a little bit better than I think you would otherwise.
Well, and not only that, writing is not only a healing tool, it's a great problem solving tool.
Mm,
So if you're stuck on something that and you can't figure out what to do next, using writing to help you kind of figure out what your next steps are,
mm,
or to figure out what, how you want to solve the problem is another great way to, because we often, so many of us often find ourselves we just get stuck. We just get stuck and we don't know how to move forward.
yeah.
And we talk about blocks a lot with writing, and their blocks are real, but sometimes the best way to get rid of your writing blocks is by writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of write something.
Yes, yes. Work on something. It doesn't have to be the exact thing that you're trying to finish.
Hmm.
But sometimes just going and write about your day, or write about, um, you know, something a memory that you have from childhood. I mean, you can always find things to write about that, um, can start to trigger, other things.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if you can't write something, then go on Reddit or go on Tumblr and just search for writing prompts, and there'll be some.
Yes,
There'll be some there for you.
absolutely.
Does
Mhm.
someone have to be a good writer for it to be helpful for their mental health?
Absolutely not. But I would also say that most people are better writers than they think they are,
Hmm.
and writing is a learned skill. So none of us knew how to write when we were born, and to be a good writer or a better writer, you just write. You
Mm.
just continue to do it. So, I hear from a lot of people, they say, "Oh, I wanna write my book, but I'm not a very good writer." That shouldn't stop you, because
Yeah.
a lot of the writing is in the editing. So, write it down, and then, we'll work on the editing. So it's but from a mental health perspective, I would say just get the words out. It
Hmm.
doesn't punctuation doesn't matter, grammar doesn't matter, um, saying exactly the right word doesn't matter. It's just getting the words out and getting them on paper. And if it's something later on you want to share, then we can fix it.
Yeah. I like the idea of like not only just write, just start
Mhm.
writing and see where it takes you. But also if it's something you want to share, because you don't always have to share. You don't have to write something with
No.
the intent for it to be shared. And if it's something that you want to share, you can work with someone to make it better and more consumable for other people, because that's kind of what you're after, is someone who's going to make sure that you're saying that you're coming off the page like you're intending to whenever you put it onto the page. And that is in the editing process. That's where all of that happens. So
Yes.
that's very, very true. What advice would you give to someone who wants to use writing to process trauma or even just like difficult emotions, but isn't sure where to start with that?
So there are a few things. Um, One is to think about creating a habit of writing. You can do it, you don't have to do it daily, but you can do it daily. And you can just set aside 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day. You don't, if you don't have time or don't want to do it daily, you can set aside, say maybe 3 times a week. Or I know people that set aside weekends and they have writing weekends. The the act of doing it regularly makes it so that when you have something that you need to deal with, you've already got a practice in place. So then it just becomes part of your regular practice.
Mhm.
And if you're doing it daily, every day doesn't have to be a novel. Every day doesn't have to be a bestseller. Every day it can just be just writing about something simple.
Mhm.
But then when you have something really heavy that you need to work through, you've got it. Okay, today my 15 minutes or my 20 minutes that I'm spending, this is what I'm going to be focused on. And so it gives you that ability so it's not new and fresh when you've got something that you're already having to deal with.
Mhm.
So you've already got your habit, you've already got your practice. Maybe you have a place set aside where you write. Maybe you have a time set aside where you write. Maybe you have a time when the kids are in bed or the significant other is at work or what you've got kind of your space and your time and your habits in place already. And then it just then becomes part of your routine.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think that's one of the biggest pieces of advice. The other thing is do what makes you comfortable. If you want to write pen to paper, like I was talking about, write pen to paper. If you want to use colored pencils, if you want to do it on your laptop, there are no rules to it. Whatever makes you comfortable and how I know people that have big packs of colored pens and pencils. And I was speaking with a gentleman a few days ago who has been using writing as a way to process the grief of losing his son.
Mm.
And he went and bought a big sketchbook and is using this large sketchbook to do all of his journaling. So there are lots of different options, and just find what works for you. Or maybe there's not one. I write on anything and everything I can find. I write on loose leaf paper. I don't keep like a normal journal.
Mhm.
I write on whatever is in front of me when I'm ready to write. So you just find what works for you.
Yeah. It I know a lot of people have their different preferences, and bullet journals get brought up a lot, and some people like
Mhm.
you'll put in a whole bunch of time into all these spreads and everything. And the thing that I found that worked best for me was to go to the dollar store and get the
Mhm.
glitteriest, purplest notebook I could find that's just
Mhm.
lined paper, and that's what I used for a really long time. And it was my therapy notebook whenever I started going to therapy. And so uh that's
Nice.
what worked for me. I did try like bullet journaling and everything, and I'm not necessarily a writer, but I did write to journal for therapy, and to help me
Mhm.
process some things as well, and multiple different things. And still, if I had something happen, like probably whenever my grandmother dies, I'll do a little bit of journaling, and it's just something that
Right.
helps you kind of get it out of there. And so even if you don't have it as a habit, if you've done it before and you've found what works for you, you can just pick it back up. And you can say, "Okay, I need it right now." and I'm going to do what I need
Right.
right now. And then whenever you don't need it, if it's not something that you really want to do, you don't have to do it. But yeah, having that
Right.
as a habit already and ready there for you to say, okay, um, it's Saturday, and Saturday's the day that I spend the afternoon writing, and I just had some things happen and I need to process them. Like then it's already there for you, and that's great, which is kind of
Right.
like therapy. Like you've got it set aside to go, and whether you have something to
Yes.
talk about or not.
Right.
And I know you work with a lot of leaders as well. How often do mental health and burnout come up in those conversations?
Often. Often. It's interesting. I think the pandemic um kind of revealed to us some things that were happening. I don't know that it necessarily made things happen. It just revealed to us
Mm-hmm.
that I think a lot of people started to really kind of understand just how burned out they were. And I was one of them. And so, yes, burnout is a real thing. And the good thing is I'm starting to see some trends and some activities. You know, there for a while, all companies wanted to talk about culture, but they thought culture was putting in a foosball table.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started realizing that that wasn't quite doing it. And so I am seeing some trends with some companies that are really making effort to focus on the mental health of their employees. But there's also the bottom line. And you know, you have to, if you don't focus on the bottom line, then you can employ people. And so there's that too. Um, but but it is interesting and quite honest, I blame the millennials. I think the millennials kind of started coming and now the Gen Zers, and I think they're really what they're asking for is really starting to reshape um, how a lot of companies are approaching their people.
Yeah. I know as a millennial, um, when you're a manager and you have someone come to you, it's been really easy for me to say, even though I didn't have managers like this throughout my career, I did have a couple, and it makes it a lot easier for me to say this job is not worth this amount of stress that you're under right now. Please take a mental health day. Like, you don't need to
Yes,
be stressing this much, and if you are stressing this much, you're too invested in this company that is not invested in you. I keep it
yes,
very real. I'm like, they don't offer pensions. They don't care about you necessarily as a
right,
company. And even if they do care about you, that means that they care about your mental health. And so they want you to make sure that you're sane and that you're taking the time you need and that you're not harming yourself for this job because it's a paycheck and that's
yes,
important. But at the same time, if you have a breakdown, then you're not going to get a paycheck anyway. So what can we do to kind of prevent
right,
that? And a lot of the time, I would have, especially the folks who I was managing who were older and they were in that Gen X and even into the boomer range. They really kind of were like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I mean, unplug, turn your phone off, or at least turn Outlook and Teams off. And I had to really walk them through what it meant to not think about the company for a couple of days, just as a you're not calling in
mhm,
sick, you're not taking vacation days, you're just going to take a couple of mental health days, and that's okay, and it's okay to do that. Um, but it is still, at least in my world, a very manager to manager kind of thing because there are managers in the company that I work for that are not the same. And so it's a very individual thing. And I think it is going to take a lot. It is going to take a lot for that to kind of become more systemic change. I am hopeful that we'll get there eventually. Whether or not we have a society to live in by then or not is a different question. But
right, right. You know, when I got to a point in my career several years ago that I was able to tell myself that any day, if you wake up and you can't go to work, then it's time to leave. It is time to go. If you can't, and quite honestly, back in 2014, I was working for a company and I had stressed myself into illness. And I left that company without another job.
Mm.
And I called it my sabbatical. And my 1 month sabbatical turned into 6 months. And I had friends calling me and they said, "Are you okay?" I am actually better than I have been in years. And I recommend to almost everyone I talk to who's in the corporate world consider taking a sabbatical at some point in your career,
Yeah.
because it can be one of the best things you can do for yourself.
Yeah. I have not had that. I've not had the luxury of having that much money, resources, time saved up. But I also have kids, and one of them's about to go to college, and the other
Yeah.
one's only 11, but he just joined band. So, like, maybe after they're grown and out, that'll be something that I could do. But you
Yeah.
know, it's really difficult to rely on something like that. If it was baked into more professions, I think that would be wonderful. If it was,
I really wish.
yeah, yeah,
I really wish companies would do that. I think they would actually see a rise in productivity
I
if
do
they
too.
baked in
Yes,
a sabbatical, a periodic, like every 5 years, you get a 2 month sabbatical.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. It would be nice,
Yeah.
and also you'd have a lot higher company loyalty from your employees as well that way.
Absolutely.
Like your
Absolutely.
5-year reward, instead of picking from this catalog of silly things from the company store, is an 8-week sabbatical. Like, hell yeah, I'll stay for 5 years.
Seriously.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
What are some common mindset blocks or fears you see in the folks you work with?
So there are the things that people say and the things that I think are actually going on.
Mm,
So what I hear a lot from people is time. I don't have time. I want to write more, but I don't have time. I think it has more to do with energy and time. And by that, and I've been in this position myself. You've worked all day, you've taken care of the kids, you've taken care of the spouse, you've taken care of parents, you've taken care of all these other people. And now it's the end of the day and I've set aside time to write. I'm exhausted.
yeah.
I have no energy left. And so I don't think it's as much time management as it is energy management. And that's one of the things when I'm talking to people and they're telling me this, then we talk about how else can we manage that?
Mm,
Can you, if you're trying to write at the end of the day, have you tried maybe getting up 15 minutes earlier in the morning and writing? Or what about taking a break in the middle of the day? I used to do that. I used to take my lunch. It would force me to leave my desk. I would grab my notebook and like I'm going to be away for the next
mm-hmm.
hour. I may not, eat a big lunch, but I'm going to go spend an hour, working on one of my projects. So so it's really kind of finding where you can get that energy
Mm-hmm.
to be able to be creative and sometimes it may take I'm going to take a weekend away. I've taken writing weekends before, gone away, rented an Airbnb and with a friend gone away and did a writing weekend.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to be a little bit creative to
Mm-hmm.
find to be able to do that. So time management is what I hear the most, but I would say it's more energy than it is time. The other thing that I hear a lot is I'm afraid to tell my story because I'm afraid people will judge me.
Mm,
And that stops a lot of people. And just like you were saying before, you don't always have to share it.
mm-hmm.
Or you don't always have to share it with everyone. Maybe you can share it, if you want to share it, you share it with a trusted friend. So or you get to decide who to share it with. But being afraid that people are going to judge you, I mean, it's a real fear. But we kind of get to decide how we can manage that.
Yeah. I think that kind of the fear of it's almost it's the fear of the judgment too, but it's like a fear of failure as well, of people aren't going to
Yes,
understand my story, or no one's going to be interested in hearing my story, or that kind of thing. It can be hard. That can be hard to get over for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. And you know that the imposter syndrome is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we are all, so many of us are afraid that, I am just a fraud and they're going to find out.
Yep.
And if I open my mouth and put all these words out into the world, then, they're really going to find out.
Mm-hmm.
So but I think it goes back to the more you do it, the more confident you get in it. And, you can even start small. You can start with, sharing. If you want to share, you can start with, sharing a little something on I like the site Medium,
Mm-hmm.
Substack. They're really good sites for sharing stories or essays or thoughts or, different things. You can share on social media. So there's, you know, really good ways if you do want to share and get people thoughts on it, there you can put it out there.
I like Substack. I like Medium as well. But the reason I don't like it as much is that you have to pay for like you get into
Well,
one or two articles and then you can't. But there's so much on Substack that like it's either free content
mhm,
or you can access most of a creator's content for free and they have some paid stuff. But like that artist gets to decide that. It's not controlled by
right.
the website itself. But I mean, both of those are really good. And I know folks who write on Substack regularly, and I know folks who write on Medium regularly. And they honestly like their whole thing is, hey, it's getting it out there. So whichever you wanted to do
Exactly.
is fine. Like whatever works for you is what's going to work for you.
Right. And give it 6 months, there'll be another option out there.
Yeah, for sure. Most definitely.
Yeah.
You mentioned when you kind of hit a not necessarily a writer's block, but kind of that time block or the energy block, you do an Airbnb and that kind of thing. Is there anything in particular you do whenever you hit a creative block where you're like, I just don't know what to write. I don't know what to write next. I don't know where to start.
What I have found works best for me is to have multiple projects going on at
Mm,
one time, and if I hit a block on one, I go work on a different project. And sometimes it's not always another writing project. It may be a painting that
hmm
I'm working on. It may be, something completely different. It may be a house project. It may be a project in the yard, but just kind of breaking that cycle and doing something different. And a lot of times, what I found is while I'm doing that different thing, it'll hit me. Whatever it is I was trying to solve, or whatever it is that whatever was blocking me, I it resolves itself
hmm
while I'm doing something different. So that is the best tool that I have found for any kind of block, whether I'm working on a project or a creative project or a writing project or whatever it is I and I'm not a multitasker because multitasking doesn't, we our brains don't work that way. But I have multiple things that are always going on at one time.
hmm
So I can always pick up something else and work on that. And sometimes it may only take a few minutes.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it takes longer. But yeah, that is the best tool for me
hmm
to help break a block.
Yeah. I like that because it's just very much the I do something similar if I'm feeling stuck doing something. But I'll be like, okay, I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling like I'm not making progress on this. I'm going to clean my desk and get it clean,
Mhm.
and then I'm like, okay, I've done something that is totally within my control. Let's revisit this other thing and figure out if I can do it. Or I'll go organize a cabinet or whatever. But that's also something that I've been trying to get my 11-year-old to understand, because he'll get really frustrated with something, uh, particularly in video games. He'll get really frustrated, and I'll hear him because he gets louder and louder. And I'll be like, okay,
Right.
you can go read a book. You can go play another game. You can go outside. You can do all these different things, but you're done doing what you're doing for right now. And he'll go and he'll do something different, and then he'll come back to that later. And I don't know if he solves the same problem or if he goes to a different problem or goes to a different game, but he usually doesn't go right back to being that same level of frustrated.
Right.
So it's just a matter of
Right.
get your mind out of whatever it is and give yourself that time to kind of figure out what is not working for you, whether it's a level in a video game or writing or whatever it
Right.
is whatever project you're trying to work on.
Yeah.
Can definitely help to just kind
Absolutely.
of walk away. In addition to writing and being a comedian and an artist and all these other things, you worked as a publisher and an editor. What are some common mistakes you see new writers make?
From an editing perspective, long sentences.
Mm,
Really, I spend the majority of my time when I'm doing editing breaking up sentences. Um, and so it readers, our brains can only consume so many words at a time.
mm-hmm.
So when we have really long thoughts, the reader loses track. So, one of the things I always recommend to my writers is to keep their sentences short, keep their paragraphs short, um, keep their words short, um, because it really helps. Anytime your reader loses track with what they're writing, they're going to lose interest.
Mm,
And the goal for me is don't let them put the book down. You don't want to
yeah.
put the book down. Um, at least until they're finished with the chapter, or at least they're finished with the section. Because once they put it down, they may not pick it back up.
Mm-hmm.
So, so if you really want to keep their attention, keep it simple.
Yeah. I tend to write in very long sentences. And not even like,
We all
yeah,
do.
it's not like a I don't write
It's common.
things. Yeah, but I'll go through and self-edit my emails because I'll just type it all out, and then I have to go back and be like,
Mhm.
okay, break that up. Okay, break that up. Okay, break that up. Okay, break that up. It's very like the flow is just there for longer sentences. It is work to go back and edit them back out. Do you prefer if someone has gone through and done like a first editing pass to try to do that themselves, or is that something that you're just like, no, send it to me how you wrote it originally, and I'll go through and kind of work on that with you?
Most of the time, by the time I get it, they've already kind of gone through it at least once. However, if they haven't, it's not a big deal. I can take it in whatever, state it's in. Um, what I do like is to be able to have a conversation with them before they actually even start writing.
Ooh.
If possible, it's not always possible, but if possible, because there are some things that we can do up front just to set them up so that as they're going through the creative process, they're thinking about certain things, and we can get that process a little bit cleaner from the beginning. We can help them to um, get some of their thoughts organized.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's some different exercises that we can do to help them get set up in the beginning, that will just help them, uh, and kind of help keep them from hitting some of those frustration points while they're going through the process. So if possible, I like to get with people as early in the process as I can.
Yeah.
But if they've already written the book and they're needing an editor, I can always take it from there. So I can really kind of insert myself at any point in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Repentant man, I see you in the chat. I know about wiring and mental health. That's great. If you have any questions about writing and mental health, feel free to pop them into the chat. We'll make sure to address them while we're here. Jennifer, is there anything you wish more people understood about the writing or even the publishing process?
It doesn't have to be hard. So many people and the industry sort of lent for so many years. Being a published author was kind of an elusive thing for many people because there were only so many publishers and it was very hard to
Hmm.
get in front of them and there was this process. It's not that way anymore. There are so many different options. We were talking about Substack and Medium, for you can publish there, you can self-publish through Amazon or Barnes and Noble, or there are other platforms. You can even self-publish an Apple book, um, if you want to. So there are many different platforms for doing that. So it's not this elusive process that it was in the past. And so it's available
Hmm.
for, everyone has an opportunity to share their story. Everyone has an opportunity to share their insights and for some people it's almost why shouldn't you? We all have great stories. We all have things that we've learned in our lives, mistakes that we've made that we've learned from, successes that we've had. And, by sharing those stories and sharing that information, you're potentially helping other people. So it's so accessible now. And I would love to see more people, really kind of take advantage of that and kind of step out there and be able to share all these things that they have inside them.
Yeah. It's interesting that it is just so much more available now. I mean, you
Mm.
can self-publish and you can write in all these different places where people can find you, and it's very just digital age to think of how it was not even,
Right.
20 years ago and how different it is now. But I think that's a great
Right.
thing. I think that's a great thing.
Absolutely.
I went to a bookstore fairly recently and found a book by someone who is local. And it's like, oh, cool, you're in this town that's very close to DFW, and you wrote this sci-fi book, and that's so cool. And then now it's in this bookstore. And so I haven't read it yet, so I can't tell you if it's any good, but it's in my room waiting to be read. So, it's just one of those things. It's really neat. Even if it's a sci-fi book, you have a chance of someone picking it up in a bookstore and saying, "Oh, cool, you're in my area." Like that's
Right.
real instant connection made me buy the book. I know nothing about this author. I know nothing about this story, but I sure as hell bought it.
Right.
So you
That's
just gotta,
awesome.
yeah,
I
gotta
ran
find that way
into
to connect.
someone, yeah, I was at an art fair last weekend and ran into a gentleman. He had a table. He had uh, three or four books, and it was all Southern Gothic stories. I'm like, oh, that's very
Ooh,
interesting. So, yeah, and I actually invited him onto my podcast, and so it's just interesting the connections that you can make
yeah.
through those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it. I love finding local authors.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and now that I'm kind of in a new city right now, so I get to, you know, sort of do my searching around and find, who are the local authors in this area.
Yeah. There is another local bookstore here, and they have a whole shelf dedicated to local authors. So it's like, and they mean city local.
Awesome.
Like these are folks who live in this particular city, and here are the things they've written. And it's really cool to just go in there and be like, what are people in this town? Because it's a little farm town. Like, I mean, not little. It's decently sized, but it's still a farm town. So it's decently sized for a farm town. But it's like, what are people around me writing about? And you can go and see this whole thing. I highly recommend going into local shops. Anytime you can, go into like a
Yes,
local bookshop. And ask them,
absolutely.
because those bookshops probably know who's local. They could probably find you something really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So you wrote the Author's Way Journal, and it's an Author's Way Journal 90-day journey to finding your voice. So it's a 90-day journey. What do you hope someone gains after those 90 days of writing?
So, as I was saying earlier, writing is a learned skill.
Mm-hmm.
And I run into so many people who tell me that they aren't writers. I want to write, but I'm not a writer. I'm not a good writer. And that's a learned skill. So part of the reason I created the journal was to give people a tool that they can use to create a daily habit or a weekly habit of writing so that they can actually become better writers. That's what their goal is. So the way the journal is set up is 90 days, and every day you have three different things that you can write about. So it has um, dotted pages. So I chose the dotted pages because I wanted to give people the ability to scribble or doodle
Yeah.
or, whatever they wanted to do. But they have they have a writing prompt for the day. They have a gratitude for the day, and they
Oh.
have a word for the day. And all of the words are high vibration words. So they can choose either of those three things to write about, or they can write whatever they want to write.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives them the ability so they can, when they sit down to write, they don't have to think about what to write about, which is one of the big blocks that people have.
Yeah.
They're like, I sit down to write and I don't know what to write about. So this gives you three different things you can choose from every single day to write about. And one of the things that's been fascinating is, as I've talked to people who've used the journal, is I was talking to this one woman, and she had recently lost her grandfather.
Mm.
And she said these prompts were, it was amazing the things that were kind of coming out of me. And it helped her to kind of deal with some of the grief from losing her grandmother. And so the prompts are things like, write a story from your childhood, or write about something that happened to you yesterday. I mean, they're simple
Mm-hmm.
prompts, but it's just something to get your mind going. And so it just gives you the ability to be able to create a habit of writing on a regular basis without having to worry about what am I going to write about every time I sit down to write.
Yeah.
And then at the end of what I encourage people is at the end of the 90 days, if you've written every day, or you don't have to write every day, at the end of writing 90 times,
There you go.
you can go back through it and you would be amazed at what you see. You'll see progression in certain things in your writing. You'll see stories that start to come out, and you may even have a book in there. You've got 90 days worth of writing. That's a lot of content.
Mm-hmm.
So there may be a book in there. And so maybe there's an opportunity to really kind of explore, some of your ideas and see where it might go.
Yeah, and that's really cool. And I like the idea of, yeah, you could do this in 90 days, but also 90 days of writing. That's still 90 days, whether it took
Mhm.
you 180 days to do that 90 days.
Exactly.
It's still that same amount of writing, and that's something to be proud of also. if you took the time to do all of that,
Absolutely.
that's way more than some people are doing right now. Way more than I'm doing right now. So you've got me beat. If you go through this journal then you've got me beat for sure.
Yes, yes. Well, and I have information in there about how, because I want to hear people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the ability to reach out to me, get in touch with me, and share with me, their experience with the journal, because I love to hear how people are using these kinds of
Yeah.
tools.
I love that because I've talked about this before, probably recently, but anytime you're impacted by someone's work, send them a note. Like just reach out
Oh,
and say,
absolutely.
"Hey, wanted you to know I did this 90-day journal. It was so cool." And or wanted you to know I read a Twitter post that you did and I just really appreciate you. Anytime you can say thank you to a creator, please do. And that's whether they're an online creator, whether they're a print creator, whatever it is,
Yes,
anytime you can say, "Hey, love what you're doing. Keep that shit up." Like that makes your day, your week, or your year. It just makes things it makes you feel like you are supported and loved, and then it gives you that feeling of I reached out and I did a good thing. So it goes both ways. Both people get
absolutely.
something out of that. So
Yes.
definitely encourage anyone who's done this 90-day journal, just reach out and let Jennifer know how that went for you because she already said she'd love to hear from you, and I'm telling you that I love hearing from people too. So, 100% of people on this call suggest doing it. So, you talked about the prompts in this journal. Do you have any simple prompts or writing practices people can try specifically for when they're struggling emotionally?
So one of the things that works really well is there's a few words that you can use. If you're stuck, if you're trying to figure something out, you can use words like um, I love, and then finish the sentence. I hate, and finish the sentence. I don't understand, and finish the sentence. So just starting a sentence, and then with some of these, um, or I I just lost it. A really great one, and it just disappeared. Um, but but starting with like two words, I am, I have, I don't. Just it gives you a really good way to get your mind started into and honestly, sometimes I do those exercises and I don't even have a plan for where it's going to go,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of see where it goes. Other couple of things is set a timer for yourself.
Mm.
You want to write, it kind of bookends it for you. You can write after the timer, you can keep going after the timer goes off, but it gives you sort of a goal. And I usually say, try, if you're getting started, try 5 or 10 minutes. If you've really developed a habit, maybe 15, 20 minutes. Once you start writing, don't pick your pen up from the paper.
Mm.
Just keep going. And it doesn't write every word that comes to your mind. Just keep going. What that does, it helps you to dig deep into um your subconscious, because it becomes almost a stream of consciousness activity.
Mm-hmm.
If you force yourself, don't take the pen off the paper. The other thing is, don't edit yourself. Don't stop and cross out. Don't change words. You can come back and do that later, but just keep going. And there's something about the brain when you do that that really digs into some deep thoughts. and really helps you to kind of get those deep thoughts out.
Mm-hmm. That stream of consciousness is so underappreciated, I think. Because if you can
Yes.
just kind of get it going and then just let it keep going, now the thing I run into is I'll start judging myself for the things that I'm thinking. But one of the things you can do is just write that. Be like, I'm feeling a little bit judgmental about what I'm currently writing, and that can be part of the writing. And it's okay to kind of have that be part of the reflection later, because you can edit that out later, and you can be like, it's not really helpful. That wasn't really a helpful thought, was it? So, you just kind of go through and do that. I think that's a great way to say, okay, I'm going to set a timer. I'm going to sit down and write and not pick up the pen from the paper, and just let myself go. I think that's great.
Yep. Yes. And I can't take full credit for this. There is an author by the name of Natalie Goldberg. She's been around for a very, very long time. I first found her, read her stuff when I was in college, like over 30 years ago. She has a book called Wild Mind. It is a phenomenal book. If you're into writing, it's one of the first books I ever read that was about writing. And she talks about a daily writing practice, and she shares a lot of those. She actually has like 7 or 8 tips. I can't remember them all, but the not picking the pen off the paper, not editing yourself. Those all are part of her 7 or 8 rules of writing practice that she has. And if you're really into writing and you want to really want to kind of explore it, she's an excellent author to read.
Oh, that's great. Well, I just put a link to the Goodreads for anybody who is interested in that. You can go read more about it and then buy it wherever you want.
Mm-hmm.
What's something that you are currently working on, either creatively or personally or both?
A couple of things. So I have just this year have started working on a collaboration book. And it's specifically with women leaders. And one of the reasons I decided to go down this path is I was doing some research a couple of years ago, and I discovered that of the top leadership books out there, if you go out and look at, the top 100 leadership books, about 10% are written by women.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really have kind of a gap in the leadership space with women authors. And so the book that I'm working on is I'm bringing together 20-ish women leaders, and to each one of them will write a chapter and to share their stories and their insights on leadership. So that's an exciting project that we're going to be kicking it off here in June, and with a goal of having the book ready to publish after the first of the year. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about being able to share those stories and help get some visibility for these women who may not, even though they're leaders in their fields, they may or may not have the ability to, or may not have had the visibility that they deserve.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that project.
That's really cool. And yeah, in most business books you go and read, or books on leadership, most of them are written by men. And sometimes you read through it as a woman and you're like, this would never work for me. Because it's just written from a different perspective. And then you'll pick up one that is by a woman and you're like, oh, she gets it.
she understands. And it's amazing just what that perspective shift can do. And that doesn't mean that those books that are written by men aren't valuable and don't have some things you can take out of them. But boy, a book written by a woman for a woman it just hits different. So it sounds like a really cool project. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Sounds like a really cool project. And not only is it helping to maybe close that gap, but like you said, you're bringing awareness to these particular women. I think that's fabulous.
Yes.
Sounds really cool. I'm excited for when it comes out next year.
Yes, thank you.
You'll have to reach back out to me and let me know when it's out so that I can make sure to get a copy.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
So Bite Mark sent this question ahead of time. She would like to know, what is your favorite poem?
Oh, there are so many. I love poetry. I am a traditionalist when it comes to poetry. I love I'm kind of old school. One of my favorite poets is Robert Frost. And Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening is one of my absolute favorites. And The Road Less Traveled is probably number 2.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Both very good options for sure. The road less, or the road not taken, the road less traveled. That one came up just recently with one of my kids also, and I said something about it, and they were like, "What?" I was like, "Oh no, go read it right now." It's short. It's easy. It's short and easy. Like that's an easy one that you should just know and have in your back pocket. That's a good one.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
What is your favorite life hack?
Oh gosh. I hadn't thought about that one. You know, there's just so many little things that happen during the day that's like, okay, let me find a way to fix that. And like there's nothing that really like pops out to me as far as, a favorite. I love hacks, but we're just always looking to figure out things and solve problems. And yeah, I don't know. I don't nothing's really coming to mind for that one.
Yeah.
As far as like a favorite.
That's okay. I mean, there are so many. Like there's so many, and especially apps. There's different things that can help you manage your mental well-being, and that can help you manage your time, and can help you just manage all sorts of stuff like checklists and to-do lists and all of that. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. There is an app that is great for writing. It's great for productivity in general. It's called Focus at Will, and you may have heard of it. It's music, but it's music that doesn't have I don't know how they've done it, but they've taken out like a lot of the distracting tones in the music. I don't know exactly how it works. When I'm writing, creating, I will put that music on, and there is something about it. I can be incredibly productive while I'm listening to that music. It filters out the extra thoughts or I don't know what it does, but it has been a very effective tool.
That's really cool. I haven't heard of that before, but just like glancing at the website, it looks like it's got a lot of science to it, which is really, really neat.
Yes.
So, and it looks like there's a lot of different options and everything as well. So I will have to check that one out because that's new to me for sure.
Yes. Someone recommended it to me back a few years ago, and it's been a really great tool.
Hey, if you've been using it for a few years, clearly it's working, for you. That's if someone recommends something to me, a week ago and I start using it, great. If someone recommends something to me 3 years ago and I'm still using it, like that means it's definitely working.
Right.
Oh, for sure. Well, it is time for the magic moment of the stream. If you could wave a magic wand and eliminate one common opinion or misconception surrounding mental illness, disabilities, or talking about mental health, what would it be?
That it's a bad thing.
Hmm.
I think we're all just different. We're all just different. And I think we just have to recognize that we're all just different.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't say that any better.
Yeah.
Because it's true. It's just a difference in the way that each of us needs to move through life. And it's okay. That's all right. Everybody has unique needs because we're all unique people. For sure.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I am going to share your socials one more time so that folks can connect with you. And again, this is going to include LinkedIn, website, a link to the book, The Author's Way Journal, and a free writing tool, Words That Heal, a guide to personal transformation through writing. And while I'm doing that, folks who are here live, if you have any other questions for Jennifer, feel free to pop them into the chat and we'll ask them. And then Jennifer, while we're waiting on those to come in, I'll just turn it over to you as far as anything you want to talk about, anything you got coming up that you want to share, or just anything we didn't cover that you're like, oh, I wish I'd said this. This is your time to shine. So here you go.
Appreciate that. I really appreciate the time to this evening. This has been a fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I will share one other quick thing. I do have, I'm getting ready to launch an authors group. And the reason I say authors group is it's really for published authors. Because what I'm finding is there's so many authors out there who have put their heart and souls into writing their books and then they don't know what to do with them next.
Yeah.
And it's for those people to help them. We're going to work together and we're going to figure out how to use that content or how to use those books to help them reach whatever their goals are. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm relaunching. So my Author's Way podcast was on hiatus for a little bit. I'm getting ready to relaunch, and I'll be relaunching it in the end of May. So, and so I'm looking forward to some great conversations there as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm familiar with putting a podcast on a hiatus because that happened to me when 2020 happened. So I feel you, and good job getting it back out there. Most definitely. The authors group sounds really cool.
Yeah.
If you have a link to that, whenever you do kick it off, feel free to share it and I'll make sure that it goes on my website and everything to share with folks.
Okay.
And we have a couple of questions in the chat.
We'll do that.
We have a couple of questions in the chat that we'll get to real quick. Rose, nice to see you. Thanks for being here tonight. Rose would like to know, do you crochet and or knit?
I do. Yes, I crochet. I knit a tiny little bit. I'm not very good at knitting, but I have crocheted since I was 5 years old. My great grandmother taught me how to crochet. So yes, I do that a lot. I love making very intricate patterns with Afghans. So yeah, that's another kind of meditation.
Yeah.
That I do. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my very favorite blankets, and I still have it, but it's in a bin because it's starting to be a little bit delicate, is an Afghan that one of my great relatives crocheted for me. And I remember being a kid while she was crocheting it, she let me pick the colors that went into it and everything. But it was for a twin size bed. It was very long ago. It is starting to be a little bit like, if I spill something on this, I don't know if it can survive another wash. So it is in a bin. But that's very cool. And I would give you some of your own words back and say that you're not very good at knitting yet. And if that's a skill you want to develop, it is a skill you could develop. So most definitely.
I just haven't done it enough. Yes.
Yeah. Well, very cool. And then Tib has a very silly question. Would you rather get Cheeto fingers once a day at a random time, or every time you take a sip of water, a fly buzzes around your head? Does the fly go away? Does the fly go away after a buzz? Like, does it just circle your head one time and then go away? Are
Okay,
the Cheeto
that's
fingers?
valid.
Yeah, like are the Cheeto fingers? What if you're typing while you get Cheeto fingers?
Oh,
Right.
using your phone. I mean, that's
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or running your
Oh my
fingers through
gosh.
your
Yes.
hair, like scratching your head, and then they get a yeah. I don't know. I would think I would take the fly.
Now that you put it that way, I might take the fly. I do have a thing about flies though. I cannot, you get I actually had one in the car today that was just like, okay, that's
If they go away, if it's
really
not
annoying.
like you have to
Right.
deal with the fly, then that's fine. If it's just like
Right.
fly around your head and then they disappear, okay, whatever. Although I do take a sip of
Right.
water like a lot, but I might change my water drinking habits also. Maybe I won't drink water anymore. I'm going to switch to only vodka. No.
Oh, well, there you go.
I'm going to only drink tea. That's a better answer, probably.
Right. Right.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time out today. I think this has been a thoroughly enjoyable conversation for me, and I appreciate you being here.
Yes, I appreciate it. This has been fantastic, and I appreciate what you do. I mean,
Thank you.
these are important conversations to have. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you for saying that. I need to hear that sometimes. Like we were talking about earlier. Sometimes it's just nice to have that reassurance. So thank you.
Right. Right.
All right, folks, give me just a minute to disconnect with Jennifer and I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. Stick around.
That's it for today's episode of Even Tacos Fall Apart. I really enjoyed talking with Jennifer about writing and mental health. She reminded us that you don't have to be a professional writer to get something valuable out of putting words on paper. It's not about perfect grammar or a best-selling idea. It's about giving yourself space to process, reflect, and maybe even unload some of the stuff you've been carrying. We covered a lot, from making writing a regular habit to using prompts when you feel stuck, to letting go of the idea that you have to share what you write with anyone. Those are things you can apply in everyday life. If your brain feels like it's running a mile a minute, grab whatever's nearby and write it down. If you're processing something heavy, try setting a timer and letting yourself write without stopping. And if you want to just keep track of the good things in your day, that's valuable too. It's also worth remembering what Jennifer said about energy versus time. If you're too drained at the end of the day to write, try shifting when you do it. You might be surprised how much easier it feels when you match it to the moments you have a little more fuel in the tank. If this conversation was helpful or made you think differently about writing and mental health, I'd love to hear it. If you would subscribe to the show, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need to hear it, it helps more people find Even Tacos Fall Apart and join these kinds of conversations. Life gets messy, thoughts get tangled, and sometimes writing them down is one of the simplest ways to start untangling them. Remember, even tacos fall apart and we still love them, and I still love you. See you next time.